Let's celebrate and celebrate often. On September the 30th, we celebrated International Podcast Day. I am so excited that I got some other ladies to join in on this celebration with me. And who we had was myself, Dawn Fobbs, and then we had Angelique Roberts. And we are the host of the Mother Daughter Ish podcast, YouTube show, and podcast. And guess what? Then we had Miss Justine Rhodes, and her podcast is Mentally a Bad ASS, and it's all about mental health, wellness, and mental health. We also then had wonderful Miss Jasmine Armstrong, and she is the host of Tea Talks, and I'm telling you, they get down over there at Tea Talks. But I just think that celebrating the industry that you are in or you are a part of is so very important. So guess what? We wanted to not keep it a secret, so what we did is we recorded an amazing show for you to be able to watch, to be able to listen to us. And here is our interviews of just talking about what we love about podcasting, a little bit of history about podcasting, how our show flow kind of goes to get you interested in taking a look at our shows, because that's what we want you to subscribe. We want you to like, we want you to share. We want you to put those notification buttons on for all of us. So check out what Mother Daughter Ish hosts have to say. Check out what Mentally Bad ASS Justine has to say, and check out what Miss Jasmine at Tea Talks has to share with you about her podcast. Here comes the interview. We know you're going to enjoy it, so all you got to do is just hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share it with all of the friends that you know. Each one of us will have this particular show up on our podcast, so you can check it out at either one of them. Enjoy our show. See you soon. Bye for now. Okay. All right, y'all ready to celebrate International Podcast Day?
Yeah.
I guess I'm the Moroccan DJ.
The energy.
Exactly. Gotta have and keep that energy. I really like talking to people who have started their podcast, or even those who are thinking about starting a podcast, because I just absolutely find it interesting. I feel like just like there's an association for everything, there should be a podcast for everything. And if you just look around, you can tell there is, right?
Pretty much.
So what I want to do is I want to start with us introducing ourselves, and we're going to start over here to the left. I see Justine, then there's me to the right, and then Jasmine down at the bottom, and then Angie. So let's start with Justine. Let us know who you are and tell us about your podcast and what made you start podcasting.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Yeah. So as Dawn said, my name is Justine, and I have a podcast. It's called Mentally a Badass. So it's a mental health podcast. So the mission of the podcast is to change the way society perceives someone who has a mental illness. So society these days see people who struggle with their mental health as weak-minded, but that's completely opposite in reality. People who, struggle with their mental health are true badasses. So on my podcast, I interview people from like all over the country. I have some people internationally, and they talk about their story. We dig deep into it, and I've learned that we all have very unique stories. So really, the big thing about my podcast is to bring everyone's unique story and to give them that platform and hope to relate to my audience.
Absolutely. And I can absolutely tell you that she's an absolute great interviewer. She makes you feel very comfortable, gives you a space to be able to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about at that moment. And what I do also like about what you do with your podcast is not only are you listening, but you're learning, you're expressing how you felt about something. So woohoo for Justine and her podcast. Woo! All right.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So my name is Dawn Fobbs. I am a serial entrepreneur. I have been since 1998. I love what I do as a business development consultant. I work with for-profit individuals, and I help people to start their own 501c3 nonprofits and get money to run them. The reason that we started our podcast was just kind of like we have been having so many conversations during that week, and I was just like, there's just always some ish going on with women, whether it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. We just always have something going on. There's
Man.
always, like the girl from City Girl said, there's always something. So there always is something going on. So I text my daughter one night and I was like, we should start a podcast called Mother Daughter Ish, because there's always something going on with mothers and daughters, whether they're getting along or they're not getting along, or they're trying to get along, or they don't even communicate. And I'll let Angie talk about that, because we always say we don't even speak the same language. And with there being a 21-year difference, it's just amazing how we don't speak the same language at all. So we just decided that we were going to go ahead and start the podcast, because we realized one thing is that lack of communication, or the way we communicate, was pretty much killing everything about a relationship with a mother and a daughter. So I thought that it would be a great idea to start something that was kind of like a talk therapy, where she and I could talk about things. We could help other people to learn how to communicate as well, but then we get to know things about. Now I will tell you, Angie has shared things with me that I never thought I wanted to know, because she just talks about anything. And I'm just like, man, I wish I could have been at her age and been able to just tell people things. It's just like, wait a minute, I have to remind her, girl, we grew up in the Bible Belt. I'm gonna need you to chill. But it's really fun. And so we're really having a really great time with the podcast. And that's kind of why we started this, not just to help other mothers and daughters communicate, but to teach us how to communicate better, just because we do have such an age gap between us. So woohoo for Mother Daughter Ish podcast. Woo! All right, Jasmine. All right, Jasmine.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that me?
Yes, ma'am. That's you.
And everyone who's watching, I'm Jasmine. My podcasting is Tea Talks. It's actually live on Facebook. I'm actually getting help to get it transferred into the podcast world, which is going to be super exciting.
Awesome.
My whole purpose of creating Tea Talks was because I my girls, and especially a lot of ladies who went through childbirth, but they never experienced an orgasm. So it was like childbirth was normal conversation, but when I go, well, do you know what an orgasm is? Do you know how to achieve that orgasm? And it was almost like how you said it's the Bible Belt. So it's like,
You ain't
don't
talking about that. Yeah.
Talking about that. I'm like, well, all right, well, then just answer a yes or no question. When's the last time you had an orgasm? And they'll all said that, they've either never experienced it or they're afraid to talk to their partner about it. So my show is to down that communication barrier between you and your partner, and we are an unbiased show. The LGBTQ is comfortable there. Men, women, everyone. It's really designated to the women, because the women have the most, I'm gonna say, issues with saying, hey, I like this, I don't like that, or can I try that? So doing it for the honestly, I think 5 years now, I've had the most ladies come telling me that they are actually getting orgasms, that they're actually, getting better with communicating with their partners, and they feel now more dominant and powerful with their sex life. And it's not just, I'm pregnant, I'm having a baby. It's like, girl, I had some really great sex the other night. It was a mind shot on it, whatever. So that's
a
what
lot of women don't talk about. You're right. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
they
awesome.
don't.
Woo for Jasmine. And what is it? Tea Talk, right?
Tea Talk.
All right, Angie.
Stay on the tea.
You're up next. Angelique Piochet.
Yes, I'm Angelique, or Angie, and I'm the co-host of Mother Daughter Ish podcast.
No. You are the other host.
The other host, the other host of Mother Daughter Ish podcast. And my goal is to definitely reach a lot of the women my age, because I have a lot of friends personally that don't have those conversations with their mother, and actually have since listened to a couple of our episodes. And it's about 3 or 4 of them that I have, that have that conversation with their mother. But yeah.
Absolutely. Woo for Angie! Yay!
Yeah.
Well, before we get into our talk, and I sent you a couple of questions, but before we get into our talk, I have to be my nerd self, because this is just who I am. But I wanted to just kind of talk a little bit about International Podcast Day. First, I want to let you know, do any of you know who the father of podcasting is? What they call the father of podcasting? the person who started. Oh, this is good. All right. So the father of podcasting is Adam Curry, and Adam Curry started it in 2004, just kind of on a fluke. Wasn't trying to really do it, but just happened to do it in 2004. His name is Adam Curry, and his partner was Dave Weiner, and they created, and they are the inventors of what we now call podcast. And a lot of people think Apple started the whole thing, or that Steve Jobs started the whole thing, but what we can say is they innovated it for us. And now that they've kind of moved away from it, it's like now there's so many other platforms, but they did it, and they made it possible for us to do it. A little bit about Adam Clark Curry. He was born September the 3rd, 1964, and he's a podcast announcer now. He's an internet entrepreneur and a media personality known for his stint as a VJ on MTV and being one of the first celebrities to personally create and administer websites. So that's like some serious history right there. Yeah, and they kind of celebrate this. If you went on to any of the podcast websites today, you saw that everybody was doing something. I saw one podcast nation, they were giving away t-shirts, and I saw someone else that was doing some type of event. And I didn't see anybody doing what we're doing, but I did see people doing at least something. So I thought that would be quite interesting to kind of bring to the forefront. As a matter of fact, if you get an opportunity to check it out, you can go to International Podcast Day website, and it gives you an entire timeline in history, if you care to know, just from the beginning of like who was after they created this whole thing called podcasting, like who was the first podcast that went live. And as we know now, do any of you know who the top podcaster is on the planet right now?
No.
I know maybe the US.
Who?
Well, I mean, Jay Shetty is very popular.
He is. I like him.
US, I love Jay Shetty.
Okay.
And Rob Daniel. They're my favorites.
So the top podcaster, as in numbers, as in sponsor money, as in has the most downloads and views, is going to be Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan.
He has $100 million deal with Spotify, and he gets millions of downloads, views, and listeners every single day because he's got the Spotify audio part, but then he's got the clips that he uses on YouTube. So if you don't know who Joe Rogan is, to some people, he's controversial. To other people, he's educational. Let me tell you something. When I found out about who Adam Curry was, the father of podcasting, I was literally watching Joe Rogan interview him face to face on YouTube. And I got up and got my pen and paper and started writing. And then I went and Googled who Adam Curry was. And I was just like, oh my God, this was literally only 3 months ago that I saw this. I knew that there was a guy other than Steve Jobs that was the father of it, but I needed to know who the guy was. I just thought it was interesting.
My goodness.
He's actually was born in Newark, New Jersey. I grew up from like 20 minutes from him.
Oh my gosh.
He's a Leo.
Hey,
I'm a Leo, so now I get it.
That's really cool. Yeah. It's really cool. But I just I always thought, because I was kind of like putting MP3 listener devices with podcasting listening, because I know that people in other countries, like in Kenya and other countries, they still listen on the MP3 player. Because when I had a podcast from 2015 to 17, I had a lot of individuals from like Costa Rica and Africa in my analytics that was listening to my podcast, and I couldn't figure out how. But when you go in and you start searching for like a business podcast or women focused podcast or whatever, those podcasts will come up. They don't have to be top of the line. They just will come up and people will listen, and in your analytics, you'll be able to see that in the background. So I thought I'd share that very interesting information with y'all, just in case. I was hoping you didn't know. So this was great.
I had no idea.
Absolutely. So what I would like to know from each person is, what are you excited about right now? Like, as you look at today, Thursday, September the 30th, 2021, on International Podcast Day, what is it that you're excited about? And it doesn't just have to be about your podcast. It just could be, this is the thing I'm excited about today.
Am I first?
Yeah, sure. Anybody.
I didn't know we were going in like, okay. I think what I'm most excited about is my season 2 coming out. And I said it, I don't know if I told you on the phone
yet. Season 2!
I'm setting the date for October 10th because that's World Mental Health Day.
Yes.
that's perfect. So
That's
I pretty much have
perfect.
10 days to edit all the episodes. It's
Yes,
gonna
yes.
be challenging, but I'm ready to do. I'm ready to challenge myself. I'm also
You got this.
Yeah.
That's good. Well,
yeah.
Justine, you figured out something that a lot of people don't figure out. When we have these platforms like podcasts, for us to get in and be like the big dogs, as they would say, we have to literally attach ourselves to something that's bigger. So you tapping into that World Mental Health Day is going to be perfect for you, because not only can you raise awareness, but then you can get to do what it is that you love, which is that conversation that you're having with people, explaining it and talking about it, and just keeping the conversation going and celebrating that particular type of day. So you figured it out. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that until I was like doing my day job, and
Yeah.
then my coworker slash friend, she said, "Hey, I'm working on a presentation for, because we have a diversity and inclusion section of our weekly
Yeah.
meetings at Disney. So they're
Right.
like, we're gonna do mental health next week. So she pulled me to help her on the presentation. I'm like,
Okay.
I appreciate you thinking of me to
Perfect.
pull me to help you with that, because I'm like the mental health person, like our whole team. So another thing, I'm excited for my merch to come out.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Nice.
tell us about the merch. Tell us merch.
Yeah, so far I have like this is a t-shirt. So this is my like the logo.
Like we're getting flashed.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Okay.
black and purple are my brand colors.
Yeah.
I do also have a coffee mug, and a t-shirt. I was gonna do a phone case, but I ordered the stuff and I just didn't like how it came out, so I don't want to
Right.
say
Right.
it. But right now we're just starting with a couple things to see how it's going. My
Yeah.
coloring book's coming out soon. I'm just still working on getting it approved by Amazon.
Angie, you love those coloring books,
I have a
Angie. So
lot of
that's
like,
good.
Dude, I was actually coloring today.
Yeah, she loves coloring. But
yeah,
it's funny
so
because she's been like that forever. We go to restaurants and she would, first thing she do is grab the colors in the book. So Justine,
I still do.
Justine, you're gonna kill it on that.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
And just need Amazon too. I just need Amazon to approve it. It's just like
Okay.
little things are like, oh, you need a little bit more inch here, and like just like little things like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
Oh my God.
but it'll eventually get up there. I'll let you guys know when it's on Amazon.
Absolutely. Let us know so we can celebrate with you.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
sure.
All right, Jasmine, tell us what's going on. What are you excited about right now? Come on, Jasmine.
There's a lot going on at one time. I have, of course, T Talks, and I have JCA. That's my model and talent agency. And so pretty much for next year, I'm going to be going on tour from the months of April to August, and I'm bringing all of my businesses. So on Fridays, I'm going to do a T Talks tour where I'm going to have a bunch of, we're going to do painting, we'll have some erotic poetry, a little bit of everything there. And then on that Saturday, I'm going to train some models. And then when that comes, I'm going to have my creatives mixers that I used to have here in Columbia once a month. But once it gets cold, I'm going to be honest with y'all, I'll turn it to bah humbug. And you can't catch me outside. So,
That's my mom.
I have this
So-
running joke that I say every year. Why is winter coming when I'm still trying to thaw out from last year?
thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm still enjoying myself. I'm a summer baby. I was born in.
Take it. I can't take
Ooh,
it. I
it
need
drives me nuts.
between 85 and 110, and I'm happy.
Thank you. Okay, I was like, I'd rather sweat than shake and
I would
freeze.
rather sweat
Wow.
in every crack that I have than to be a
Oh,
little. Because
thank
I
you.
can cool off and fan my. Look at Angie. She's like, no, I can fan myself, cool off, but once my bones get cold, it's a wrap.
It's like I can't
I'm
get.
staying right here so I don't get too hot.
Look at you, so
I can't take it. She
That's
kills me. She take this fan everywhere. And she just be like, what
I
you
got a
say?
portable one,
Like,
same
are you
color.
serious? This is a diva move.
I
Oh
do
my
not play when I get hot. Oh,
But Jasmine, you got to definitely let us know about your tour, because Angie and I are going to be doing a tour as well, and we may cross paths in some of these things,
Oh, that would be.
some things like that. So let's try to see where we're going to be, and then we can help cross promote one another. We're going to have a lot of sponsors backing us, and if there's anything we can do to help you, to show you how to get sponsors for what you're doing, I'll be here to help you with that.
Yes, I will be most definitely reaching out, because I also do whipped shea butter, and I'm trying to get that international too. It's just an all natural shea butter that doesn't have sense to it. So a lot of people who have skin disorders, it actually heals their skin. So I'm on being on tour for next year for all that. And right now I'm just pretty much working on my budget and getting the city I want. So I will most definitely be reaching out because I need some help.
Yay, Jasmine. And hey, good luck on the tour. We
Thank
know it's going to be successful, so we're not even worried about it. Like you say, just get that budget together, try to get as many sponsors as you can to back you, and
Yes, ma'am.
you'll be just fine with that. But that's exciting. All right, Angie, you want to talk about, we got about 4 things that we can talk about, but if you want to talk about something first, go ahead, because once my motor mouth get going, it's a wrap.
I'm mainly excited about just watching our podcast really gradually. I mean, every day, I literally be every day just watching something grow, whether for like our subscribers or views or anything. I'm just really excited to see our podcast grow and me personally just knock off goals that I literally have written down in my journal. That's mainly me. I have a goal, my biggest goal that I've set since this maybe last summer. I'm wanting it to be reached by December 2021. So
Absolutely. And that's good. It feels good to be able to mark those things off your list, because before we started this today, I went to my little bucket list and I put on there, I did celebrate International Podcast by doing it this way. I've done it in other ways, but having something that we can say, this is what we're doing. I just really wanted to knock that off of my list because, next year there may be some kind of gathering or something. I don't know, but I just want to make sure that if this is what we say we're going to be doing, then we need to be celebrating our industry of what we say we're doing.
Yeah.
Oh, Angie. All right. Yay for Angie knocking off those things on the bucket list. Woo! Woo, maybe I'll do a little dance with it. All right. Well, I will tell you, TD Jakes always says nothing just happens. And I absolutely know that that is a fact because I heard him say it 20 years ago. And for these 20 years from the day I heard him say it to now, it has been nothing but proven that that is true. I did not plan what I'm about to tell you, but I did plan it to be a notch on the belt of us growing our podcast. But today on just by happenstance here, of course, today on International Podcast Day, we had some exciting things to happen. Yesterday, some things started being put in motion that we had been putting together for the last few weeks. And yesterday, our podcast got a feature in Disrupt magazine and in Thrive Global, which is Ariana Huffington's woman's movement that she has with over 8 million women in it. So we got a feature in Disrupt magazine and in Thrive Global. We have several more that are coming. Also on International Podcast, this very day today, we sent out our press release because we've got an event coming up October the 23rd in Costa Mesa, California, where we're doing a meet and greet. What happened is that VidCon got canceled and we were going to go to VidCon. And so since VidCon got canceled and we already had plans on going, we had already bought the tickets and everything. We said, okay, we're going to put our own event together, do like a meet and greet with some other women, other people who are podcasting and those who want to be podcasters. So we put an event together for women. And so what we did is we sent out our press release today and we thought, okay, well, we'll send out a couple of press releases or whatever. The press releases got picked up by so many people. Within 5 minutes, we had hit over 587 different places for the press releases to go. When we're talking AP News, we're talking across all the wires. We're talking about Asia One News. We're talking about LA Weekly. We're talking about all of the major where you can put your and it happened today on International Podcast Day, so we're quite excited. So I'll tell you, we got it on Yahoo News, we got it through the AP Press, which when you do something on Associated Press, it's a done deal. It's going everywhere. We did it on we got it on Market Watch, and we got it on Digital Journal, which all of these have millions and millions of viewers. And I've seen just from this morning to this evening that even on our event page, it went from 27 views to 69 views in like 1 hour. So that was interesting. And then we saw some new people joining the event. But then we also got it on, like I said, Asia One, which is a business. It goes out to all the business journals all across the globe. We're talking international and here in the States. Then we got it on The Wire for Newsmax. And so we're really, really, really just excited about that. And then we get one more thing right before we just came on here an hour before. Angie and I decided that we were going to write a book, and it's a book that you can take with you, and it's kind of like you're journaling the legacy of your mother or your daughter. So we've got questions in there that you want to ask your mom, and then there's questions in there that a mom might want to ask her daughter. So the book is about 257 pages long, and we wrote this book together, and we just got our approval from Amazon today that the cover and the interior, everything is ready to go. And then we're getting our first hard copy sample of it in the next 3 or 4 days. So, we're just full of real excitement today. And none of this was planned to talk about because all of this just happened today. The only thing I was going to share is that we had gotten in Disrupt magazine and Thrive Global because that happened yesterday. But then today I wake up and my publicity guy was like, guess what happened for you on International Podcast? And I'm like, what? He said, go to your email. And I went there and he showed me all these links and then he sent me the report with the first 587 in 5 minutes. I was like, what? He said, by tomorrow, you will have been seen. You will have so many 5 million digital footprints where anybody in any media source, when they type in mother, daughter, ish in Google, you're going to own those first 5 to 20 pages. I was like, okay.
That's
So he's pretty dynamic. So we are celebrating not just International Podcast Day, but we're celebrating growth and, growth for every one of us. I mean, look at Justine. She's got her merch. Yay for merch. She's got her merch coming out. She's got her new season starting in October.
I got lunch.
Jasmine, you're really smart with looking at what you're going to be doing for 2022, because that's what Angie and I've been talking about for the last month is, okay, this is what we're doing for 2022. These are the stage platforms that we want to be speaking on. This is the speaking tour we want to do. These are the sponsors that we want to back us. These are the cities and the states that we want to have a presence in.
You need
our goal,
do that.
Our big goal, and I'm going to ask each one of you what your big goal is, but our big goal is that we want to have a community of over 1 million women. And what our goal with those women is to teach, to be able to, show them anything that they need, connect them. One thing I'll tell you about business is that if you're not weaving a web of connections, then you're going to always just be kind of like a loner and a sole proprietor. That means you have no connections. I mean, you have to do everything yourself. But if I say, Jasmine, hey, I got 5 people that I could get on your podcast that'll be happy to talk about this topic. Matter of fact, one wrote a book, about this thing that's perfect for you. That's me networking with you to say, hey, Jasmine, I can send somebody, for you, Justine. I mean, I just think that we all should be building this network of really connecting with one another, but also connecting. And it's hard for people to do that, though. It's hard for them to say, hey, I'm going to connect you so that you can elevate. See, I have no problem with it. I've been doing my business for 25 years. I don't look at anybody as my competition. As a matter of fact, I look at us all as a community. We're a community of podcasters, right?
Yeah.
Same. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So what I want to know from each one of you is, I want to know, like, what is it that is your big goal? Because again, our big goal is to grow our community to 1 million women. Once we get to the million, we'll take it up from there. But we are baby crawling our way to the top right now.
Yes, I would say my big goal, and I remember I did discuss this with you, Dawn, is to be the Ellen of mental health.
Yes.
So I would love to have like a talk show where.
Does that include the dancing part too that Ellen does?
Yeah, I would love to be able to get more, definitely the goal is exposure, of course.
Yes.
And of course, making mental health talk the norm. But I would love for it to get more like a household kind of show, if that makes sense. Like, how Ellen, everybody knows what Ellen is. Everybody knows with like Jimmy Kimmel, like all those big names. Yeah. But I mean, those like when they talk with celebrities and such. But I would love to have like a talk show where we are bringing people on with their unique stories and to basically build my platform, because I truly believe that people can be saved by relating to other people.
You're
so
right.
Being able to, a lot of people out there are thinking what we're thinking, but there's a lot of people who are not ready to like pretty much come out. You know what I mean? Like instead of coming out like with your sexuality, like coming out with your
like a stigma or something. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Does people have like a stigma against, whatever?
Yeah, like they're scared to come out because like maybe they're in their community, mental health is not talked about. I mean, if in a lot of different countries, it's not spoken about. I think like, oh God, I remember exactly which country, but I do know some people in the UK, and they told me like it's not as talked about as this in the US.
Right.
So in a lot of countries like are still so in the past that they are beating people up who have mental health issues and like stuff like that. I also just want to let you know that we have 10 minutes until it's going to cut off. So we want to do a break now or?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So we will be right back.
All right.
Okay.
All right, back from the little break. All right.
Yeah,
Woo!
hey,
All
girl.
right.
Hey.
So what I would like to do is to, before we go into a little bit of talking, I would like to find out if any of you have any podcast events to share for 2022. I do have a few that I would like to share, and two of them I've already attended before, so I give it the A-OK. But are there any
Okay.
podcast events that are solely focused on us as podcasters? Y'all have any events that you're looking at potentially going to in 2022? A lot of them got canceled for 2021 and 2020, of course, but 2022 they've got their dates and everything out. Anything that you guys thinking about?
I haven't like searched it, but I definitely should. I just think it just probably just didn't like cross my mind, to be honest. But I can definitely Google and see if there's something down the road. I was Googling you guys during our break, and I saw all those articles. I'm like, that's really cool. And then I see the
Definitely, it's
event. Is the
exciting.
event end of this month?
It's October the 23rd.
Yeah, man. I wish it was a little bit like more down because I would have totally tried to make like arrangements to go.
No, no, no. We're gonna be in your neighborhood soon, honey. So don't even
Florida?
worry. Oh yeah, yeah. We've got Florida on our list. We've got New
Oh,
York. As a matter of fact, what we're gonna do in New York is we're gonna do something in the middle of Times Square by the big red stairs, and we want to do like a meet and greet type of thing, like right there in the open, so that our photographer can get that great view because it's such a
yeah.
beautiful view.
Mm,
So we want to do
okay.
something wild and crazy
We're
like
in
that.
Florida. We're in Florida. And
Uh,
you plan like it so I can put it like in my calendar or no?
so the dates we're gonna probably we got all of our locations of where we're gonna go. We already know
Okay.
everything else except we gotta then put the dates in it because with us being women, we gotta pick the best dates to come and do anything.
Yeah.
What about you, Jasmine? Any events that you've either attended or you've got on your I gotta go to that event for us podcasters?
No, not at the moment. Like I said, I was Justine. I probably should Google.
Yeah.
Y'all are making my night because I got the, as you say, the tea. I got the tea. The first thing I did when I started my first podcast in 2015 is I was like, let me connect with my community of podcasters. And the first event I heard about and I attended in Dallas, they shop it around so it doesn't just go to Texas, but the first one I went to was in 2015, and that was Podcast Movement.
Okay.
It was so much fun. There were so many thousands of people there. I learned so much. I learned, and this was literally like maybe I was only into it for about a month. So everything I learned, I had to go and revamp and like, okay, wait a minute, I could really take this thing way over there somewhere if I really do it right. I mean, I learned, why it's very, very important to have a podcast hosting company with an RSS feed to get it out everywhere. I learned why not to use a free one and to go ahead and pay for it because of the reach that you can get.
Oh,
I learned that with a podcast, you have to treat it just like it's a syndicated radio show because guess what? Syndication just means that it gets out to everybody. Well, guess what? We're digital, so we're getting out anyway, right? So we're
yeah.
just like any other syndicated show. It's just that we've used a different mechanism. So if we treat it like that, then we can also play up there with everybody else. Because if you think about it, traditional media is steadily waning.
Yeah.
It is.
All of this
Yeah.
non-traditional
No
media,
one has cable
the
anymore.
new media is
At
coming in.
least I
Just
don't.
say, Justine.
I was like, no one has cable anymore. At least I don't.
Oh no,
I
I
don't.
cut the
No.
cord 7 years ago, and I now choose every single thing that I want to see. And most of what I want to see is listening to podcasts and watching podcasts on YouTube and things like that. Other than that, I don't have that what they call appointment watching type of TV. Oh, this comes on at 7 o'clock on this channel. I got to be there. I
Yeah,
could
it's
care
not
less.
convenient for us anymore in this world. We're all so
It
busy.
is
Everyone
not
has like
convenient.
crazy lives. Like it's nice to just like stream stuff when we have the time.
Whenever you have the time. Okay, so let me share a few. Now, I will tell you there's over 56 podcast events that are a big
Okay.
deal. I'm going to give you the ones that I've gone to, and I'm going to just tell you the ones that I know that are just really awesome. So, you have Podcast Movement. Like I said, okay, Podcast Movement next year is going to be in, I think it's going to be in Florida, but it's August the 28th. I'm sorry, August the 24th through the 26th, and that's in 2022. Then you have VidCon. VidCon is going to be next year, and I believe it's going to be in July or August. They've kind of got the dates out there. But also, I went on to Instagram and I joined all of their pages just so that I could keep in the loop of knowing what's going on. But Podcast Movement is really my favorite one, not just because I meet so many people and are still in connection with them, but I like the founder of it, Jared. He's really personable. He's awesome. They did a whole podcast movie that they let us screen and everything. It was really awesome. So then you have VidCon. And then there's one called the Indie Podcast event. It's going to be next September the 8th through the 12th in 2022. Now, Indie PodCon is for anybody who has an independent podcast, means that you are not purchased by a radio station to be able to put your podcast on there. So, for example, iHeart didn't purchase you, Spotify didn't purchase you, whatever your local station didn't purchase you, but you're just like us. We're just doing our podcast on our own. We are not licensed through any agency. Now, I will give you a little secret here, so listen closely. If you are a licensed podcast and someone has purchased you, then your money is going to be different, meaning that you're going to have to accept whatever contract you have with them, meaning that you can do no pay for play. Meaning, if somebody wants to put a commercial on your podcast and they pay you $1,000, you wouldn't be able to pay that. You wouldn't be able to do that because the licensed people already have contracts with other commercial people. So you would just be able to only run your voice podcast part. You wouldn't be able to put a commercial on there, which means no extra money for you. Us not being licensed, we can pay to play all day long. If you want to be on my show, you got to pay for an interview. If you want to be have a commercial, you got to pay for a commercial. If you want me to put this kimono on and braid up my hair with your weave, and you want me to put this sweater on, it's going to cost you. So that's what I mean when I say pay for play. I don't mean it in the negative way, the way it used to be in traditional radio, where the artists would pay them to play their music over and over and over, which is illegal now. But with us being independent, so this particular event in September is for all of us independent podcasts. Then there's an event called PodCon. It's kind of like Comic-Con, but it's for podcasters. And then there's an event called PodFest. And PodFest they've got the date as March 2022, but with no solidified specific date. They just have the month and the year. But if you get a chance, do yourself a favor and Google podcast events, and it'll give you the top 20 podcast events. And then you can look at all the other ones, but also look at some of the podcast awards, because you could get an award for different things in your podcast, something innovative. You got a great website. Maybe you had a topic that brought in more people on that day than you ever had. Maybe you've done something that's very unique. For example, Justine, with you talking about mental health, you're doing something that's different because nobody wants to talk about it. Everybody has this stigma about it. We're building our community of 1 million women through communication, and they happen to be a genre of mother-daughter. You've got what you're doing. You're talking about stuff that, child, we talk about in the dark. So, if you think about all these unique things that we're doing, there's awards out there for everything. And once you start getting some of those awards, it just really takes you to a different level. So I wanted to share with all of you about all of the different events that are at your access, and you get kind of like the opportunity to go, because guess what? You have a podcast, so that gives you the right to be there, right?
Yeah.
And they're not all expensive either. They're not like, $1,000, $1,500. I mean, some of them are $100 events. Some of them are a couple of $100 events. But if you get somebody to sponsor you to go, and you wear their t-shirt or something and they sponsor you to go, you can get your event, your time paid for to go. I just saw somebody on, before we came on, I saw somebody that wants to go to IndieCon next September, and they put up a GoFundMe and already have money where people have paid to help them to get to IndieCon.
Nice.
So we got to be thinking out the box, way out the box, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure.
All right. So if y'all look into that. So what I want to move into now is this conversation about, let's just kind of have the conversation like we would as if we were doing our own podcast today. I think I want to start with Jasmine, because she gets hot over there with that tea talk.
I really do, girl. Oh, right.
I would like for you to just kind of give us a little, I would say maybe 10 to 15 minute snippet of what would be happening on your podcast right now. So let's throw you in, as they say, the hot seat. Jasmine, go.
So when the lights is like lights, camera, action, I'm normally shaking in my boots. I don't think there's nothing that I do in life that I don't get just a little nervous, because I'm like, oh, I hope they like me.
Yeah, that's so normal.
Then after I get over the I hope they like me, I'll be like, well,
no problem.
It is. They tuning in. They obviously want to be here.
Exactly.
So got the music playing, and I tell everybody, hey, I make everybody who come on the show name their genitalia. So And then there's Boozy. She's my co-host. I love her so much. I was telling Justine I want them to meet because she's actually wanting to do a mental health awareness day. Because she's
Awesome.
big. I mean, she's amazing. And I didn't realize that mental health awareness, wellness, and a healthy sexual relationship go hand in hand, especially if you deal with any type of sexual abuse or any type of trauma or just any of that type of thing. Being able to be open with your partner about that. That way you can be like, hey, we can do this, but don't do this.
Right.
I this, but that brings PTSD. Let's not do that. And how that works, hand in hand with each other. So I think that's absolutely amazing. And so we get on there, we pour up us some wine because we want to we want them to understand that we're not the white coat wearers. We're not here to be like, do it like this, don't do it like this. I'm a spiritual person. I'm not a Bible thumper. So it's not, we're not here to try to preach or any of that. The whole purpose is to have everybody come on there, get comfortable with us. We even tell them, go get your glass of wine, pour you up a drink while you're drinking with us. We love when we get married couples on there. They're amazing. And they'll come in there and just start dropping gems. For the last couple of weeks, I've been learning about the anatomy of the man's penis, which is absolutely amazing. I've learned so much stuff about it. And I've used a couple of those techniques, and
And
I will.
you even get educational on there because when you had us on
Yeah.
there, you were reading very specific information from a book
Very
that you guys were reading. So the education part is where I respect it, you know?
huge. It's
Yeah.
huge. Like we have so much fun, but the coolest thing is that when you get done with the show, you
Yeah.
learn something. And then you go tell your friend about it. And then they go tell their friend about it. I've had people inbox me the best story I think to this day is that this lady husband thought that she was cheating on him. He was like, wait a minute, where you learn all this new stuff at? And she was like, whoa, let me show you the show that I've been watching. And
Right.
so she pulled up Tea Talks for him. And so she said, my husband wants to say, thank you, girls. He wanted to say thank you girls so much for this show. He was like, because our sex life has literally went through the roof because like I
Wow.
said, sometimes it's kind of hard to communicate with your partner about certain things, or maybe you think you're a badass in the bedroom, or because maybe they're not saying something, but you ask a few questions and you realize, okay, I'm pretty good, but I could be better.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Right. I
anything
like
better. Don't
it.
ever think somebody that you're dealing with is going to be that same person because we all evolve every 7 years. So we read through a book. We make sure it's extremely educational, but so laid back. And then, like, sex is not a clean thing. So we're not trying, like I said, we're not on there with the white coats on trying to make it all. We cuss a lot. I'm totally honest. We might curse a little bit. We say all types of things. We might talk about our experiences, but it's like one of those things like, let's have some girl talk that's not so hush hush behind the closet,
Right.
or let's not talk about it at all. But
Right.
we talk about childbirth. We talk about, raising kids. We talk about taking care of our families. Why can't we, the woman who bears the child, who takes care of the family, who upholds our men when they're more at their worst, to lift them back up again? Why can't we talk about our sexual health and our appetites and the things that we want without feeling embarrassed about it or feeling like I'm going to break my man's ego if I tell him, hey, don't just stick it in immediately. I need you to warm me up a little bit. I
Right.
need, I
Mhm.
swell my product first because it's not
Right.
swollen. Just because I get wet, you don't understand that I have glands outside my vagina that aren't coming from the inside out, that just get wet by themselves. And just knowing that little bit of education, it's like, oh, okay.
Okay.
I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just breaking down communication barriers
Good.
and breaking down anatomy. Like it's so cool about the anatomy that I learned about the body. And
Yeah.
then what makes, do this, don't do that. There's this little spot in there that you probably didn't know about. Try that the next time.
Right.
And when people are calling me and telling me that they're having better sex with their partner or just better sex period, or they like I had another girl call me. She was like, I know you said that vaginas and penis, if you find the right vagina for the right penis, it's like magic. She said, when it I know this might sound a little crazy, but you was the first person I thought about. I said, so
Yeah.
you thought about me? I'm doing something right, Lord. So that is pretty much my show. And then I tell everybody,
Hilarious, hilarious.
anybody come on the
And
show.
you got asked about? Yeah, yeah. Have you ever had any bloopers on your show that just kind of made you like, oop, wow?
It's live, and honestly, I don't go back and watch it myself
You
because
don't?
I'm my own biggest critic. So
Oh,
if I sit there and I'd be like, "Ooh, I made a funny face," oh, I'd hate my laugh because it's so loud and obnoxious, or oh my god, I don't like how my hair was looking, or ooh, if my eyebrow was not as nice as I
oh
thought it
yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah. So it's probably best not to go back and look then.
Yeah, I don't go back. And then I want to just be, myself there. It's the only place like with JCA, I'm a model trainer. So I have to go in there with these moms and train their kids or train. So I have to be, a little bit thing. But on T-Toss, it's like, come on, girls, let's get drunk and talk about sex.
Exactly.
So it's a whole
That's awesome. That is awesome. I love it because, like you said, breaking down communication barriers with women. That's awesome. All right, Justine, you are up next. Give us a little run through about your show.
Yeah. So once edited and up, typically I like to start out with me doing a voiceover explaining what my audience is about to hear, and I try to like make it in a way that they're like, okay, like make them like very like super like if you're like ready to hear about what they're about to hear. They pretty much make them very like interested. Just the way that like what I say, I like pretty much type what I'm about to say and then I say it. And I usually have it with music, and then I go into the interview, and we talk. And like I said, we do talk about their story, like their background, and then I listen in depth of their story, and then from there I ask my questions. And then I like I said, I've had like people with all different stories. I've actually had a couple of people who unfortunately have been raped. So they'll tell their stories. I've had people who have attempted suicide. I've had people who had like childhood trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've interviewed. I'm trying to think like every like the people that I've interviewed. I also interviewed like life coaches, people who have like different perspectives.
Right.
I interviewed you, which you have like when you explained about how you want to be like the first millionaire, just like your mindset and everything. So my podcast is pretty much a mix of actually very interesting. It goes from like clean to not clean. So like so some episodes we talk about like personal development, which is conversations that people are like it's not dirty. Right. But then there's some conversations where I interviewed my friend. We talked about relationship trauma. Yeah. And that's when we went deep into, and I was talking about like how like men have screwed me over, and I talked more in depth of like what happened to me. Yeah. And in my head, I'm just like, Mama's gonna hear this. Oh, my mom's gonna hear it. She's gonna hear it. And so we got a little uncomfortable there. Well, I wasn't uncomfortable, but it's just like pretty much it's just more like dirty. And then for me, when I was like talking about it, I was like cursing up the storm because I get like super angry. Right. So some episodes are like that. And I honestly like don't care. I'll scream like fuck a million times. So I always like put like my podcast on like E versus like clean just in case. Yeah, just in case. But yeah, I mean it's called Mentally About Us, so it's really supposed to be like very bold and like unfiltered. So when having interviews, like people are 100% welcome to curse, 100% welcome to say whatever they want, because the point of my podcast is that we're not going to be sugarcoating things. No. When people come on talk about their story, and I always put a trigger warning in the beginning if I'm talking to a guest that it's going to talk about how they almost committed suicide or if they got raped, and they talk more in depth of their experience. I do put a trigger warning just because you never know, and it just for like safety reasons. But we do like sometimes. I actually interviewed a guy who is the founder of a nonprofit called Above the Stigma, and he talked about how he was raped by 4 girls, and he told the story like start to finish, like in depth, and I was literally about to cry. And because it's just horrible, and I'm so glad I had him on my podcast, because a lot of people also don't talk about men's mental health.
They don't.
That's a huge thing, is that I actually have dated guys where they even tell me like they don't want to show like when they're sad, because people always say to them like, you have to man up.
Right.
And that's so toxic. So since boys were taught that when they were younger, when you get older, they're gonna feel like they can't talk about it, and they can't be open about it. And did you know, like, the people who are more likely to be successful with committing suicide are men?
Yeah.
And people who are more likely to attempt suicide is women. But but the people who complete are usually men.
Wow.
And usually what the way they commit suicide is usually a firearm. And so, and that's, I mean, and it's like really dark. So it's just, that's like another big goal of my podcast, is just like really, giving that spotlight to men as well. But pretty much he was telling me how he was diagnosed bipolar, how he tried to commit suicide a couple of times, and what one thing that that happened to him that saved him was that, so he went to the ER, I think it was the ER or one of the hospitals, pretty much like check himself in, because he didn't know what to do. And when he went to the like the check-in and the desk, he just started like, he's like, I don't know how, he just goes up to the girl. He was like, I don't know like how to go about this, like I don't know what to do. He just starts bawling and crying. And the girl, she got out of her desk and she walked around and gave him a hug. And that was like, he said to me, he was like, that was the biggest thing that I felt that truly, touched, helped me, was just that knowing that somebody cares. Because when you have a mental illness, you think that nobody cares about you. And that's like, so when someone like, humans are also meant to be hugged every day. Another fact. So especially with the pandemic and people can't really be hugging, like that's really horrible for our mental health. So I've learned that hugging, like we're meant to be hugging each other, and that's, showing that affection and such. And when you don't have that, like that's also hurts your mental health. So when you are think about it, like when you're really upset and you're like having a mental breakdown, people come and they give you a hug.
Yeah, they do.
And it helps.
Yeah.
So
it does.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's definitely something that truly helps. So he created this nonprofit called Above the Stigma, where their mission is, despite like where you come from, everybody matters.
That's right.
And so, just bringing that community together. And so what he tries to do, he tries to create like virtual, like therapy groups. He does like all these meetings things. He does like a bunch of different things. And at the end of the day, it's really just like to show that people care and that people are here to listen and you're not alone.
That's right.
And yeah, and he's doing amazing things. So I have him on my podcast and he talked about that. And I just try to bring like people from all different backgrounds. And that just, I feel like that just makes my podcast very powerful, is because at the end of the day, we're all human. We all have mental health.
Yep.
And the best way for, all of us to heal society is for people to just talk and feel connected. Because another thing too is community and connection is another thing that humans need. And I feel like that's also lacked a lot here in society, because, with social media and like things, I feel like, at least what I feel, is something that I think sometimes, where social media at the end of the day is fake. Does that make sense? Like, how people always think they have like basically show like their perfect life, like the highlights. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. So like for me, I'm don't just show my highlights on Instagram. Like if I'm upset, like I'm upset. And that's another thing I've noticed, that I feel like on social media, people, don't talk about that as well, and they just show their highlights. And but that's just me going on completely something else. I can actually do a whole podcast on that with my opinion on it. But yeah, I mean, it's really the power of my podcast is pretty much inviting, badasses onto them, and basically having them tell their story and showing that they are badasses and they are just a badass, just even talking about it on a public platform. So
have you ever had someone on your podcast where after the interview was over, it affected you a day later?
Affected me in like a negative or a positive way?
In any kind of way, it doesn't matter. Like you thought about them a whole day later, like, wow, that was an interesting interview.
Yeah, no, I definitely have, and I talk about them to like, like my family and friends, and I just like I talk to this person like, um, I talked to this like I talked to an author, and I ordered her book right away. And I want to
Yeah.
read it. So yeah, I do think about her sometimes too. Like if it's just like if I have like conversation with people, I'm like, oh, I interviewed this person.
Yeah.
And I've even like brought up in like one of my meetings, my weekly meetings at Disney, we were talking about like how do we celebrate diversity, and then we like speak in our meeting, and then I brought up my podcast, and I just brought up like how my podcast is very diverse with people from all different backgrounds. Um, and I think I brought up you too. How you said that you told your family to be the first millionaire. So I was like, I interviewed a millionaire.
Yeah.
That was cool. I interviewed an author. So yeah, I brought you up briefly. So yeah, I mean, I thought of you. I think about you pretty often. I think you really do stand out, and that's what I like. I feel like people. I mean, they do. Everybody I interview is extremely important to me.
Yeah.
They are part of my journey. They're part of the story. They are part of the brand Mentally a Badass. I'm
Right.
thinking about like actually getting like I was actually gonna reach out. It's like a thing I want to do. Getting like a huge frame and
Yeah.
putting like the pictures on like each season gets their own frame and then putting
Yeah.
my guys. So I like down the road when I want to do that, I was gonna like reach out to you, be like, send me a picture of you and like put on my wall so I can put on my wall and so like, wow, I did this. Wow, I built this.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. That's really
I
good.
wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
Justine, have you ever seen this documentary on Hulu, Justine? It's called Three Identical Strangers. I think that'd be a really good topic for one of your episodes. It was wild. I saw it just last night, actually. Have you heard of it?
No, maybe I like scrolled through it or something. I have Hulu.
I know it's called Three Identical Strangers, and it's about these three guys that were literally separated at birth from the same adoption agency,
Mhm.
and they got separated at birth because they was doing some type of study on them, and come to find out they were doing a study on them because they were doing study on moms that had twins and triplets. They had a mental disorder,
Yeah.
and so they separated them at birth, but one of the sons had committed suicide, and it made me think of that, like a lot of guys, like the study that you were saying. But it was really good and mind blowing. It took me through an emotional roller coaster, but I think that'd be a really good topic.
Yeah,
It was
definitely
really
take a look
good.
at it.
Yeah. I like that. I was saying to someone not too long ago, I said, I like the fact that I think it was on our podcast we did a mental health talk, and I was saying that I like the fact that people are now talking about it a little bit more. Pre, 2020, it was just still kind of in the hush hush phase, but now, like you said, with us being going through what we just went through and coming out on the other side of not being able to talk to people, can't see them face to face, you can't shake their hand, and if you hug them, you may die. I mean, just all of these weird, crazy things. It's like we've gone through so much just to be able to have a friend or something, so it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
that's good.
we're having the 30-minute thing again.
How many minutes does it say?
It says, well, 10 more minutes till end. I can only do 40-minute limit. Do you want to do like another break? I also need to get my charger for my computer. So
Okay, well, we'll do another break and then we'll go ahead and get the ending part going. All right.
Cool.
Let me know.
All right.
All right, we are back to wrap it up so that we can have a little bit more discussion. So me and Angie, we're going to talk and then we're going to wrap it up with, I'm just going to give you a little bit more information and things that you may not have known about podcasting. Be pretty interesting and probably some things that you'll be like, wow, I didn't know that. I'm hoping that's the response. But so Angie, you want to go and just kind of talk a little bit about how we do our podcast and, the topics and things like that. And then I'll end it with that. And then we'll start with this last part. And then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. Some of the topics that we've talked about is partnership-ish. We've talked about mental health. There's been, just alone in the mental health one that I feel like a lot of mothers and daughters need to talk about. Because I always say, and my mama gonna get tired of me saying it, I always say, because I also found lately the documentaries I've been watching this week, it stems from your childhood. Like it starts how you were brought up. It starts off like when you were little. But I always say, like, a lot of the stuff that we deal with today, or a lot of stuff that we notice, or the stuff that we're trying to learn about ourselves, all starts from when we were younger. And I have everyday conversations with my one friend, Emerald, and we have the same type of stuff that we wish that we would have gone back and did with our parents. So, like, I'm glad that it was me. It was either going to be me or her, but me, doing this podcast with my mom and having these conversations and these topics, and it encourages other people, and especially women my age, have the conversation with their mother. Um, I know my mom. You just went in a what was that place? The Clear Stone, and you had the conversation with the girl in the front, and you already reached someone. Like you can
Yeah.
literally just go
All
in the
I
store and
asked
talk
her
about
was,
it.
yeah, she was asking me about the podcast, and I told her a little bit, and I said, what? And I wasn't even thinking about anything other than that she was going to give whatever she was going to give. It didn't matter if it was good or bad. I just said, how's your relationship with your mom? And she started crying.
Literally, it
And
can
she
happen
said
just
that
like
she had
that.
not spoken with her mom in a really good conversation in over 3 years, and that they fell out about something that she did when she was a teenager. She was a rebellious teenager, which strained the relationship with her and her mom. And I can understand that, because as parents, we're wondering, like, I'm trying to give you this great life. I'm trying to do these great things for you. Why is it that you want to be rebellious? So I told her, I said, think about it from your mother's standpoint. I asked her how old her mother was. She told me. I said, think about it from your mother's standpoint. She grew up in a certain kind of way. All she wanted to do was to try to raise you better. And the fact that you didn't seem to appreciate it because you stole the car and left. You jumped out the window, and all of your friends, whatever they had to say was more important than what she said. I said, think about it. Her feelings are hurt, that she thought she was doing the best, but you decided to follow your friends. So she started crying, and she said, you know what? I'm going to call my mom today. So I can't wait until I go to my appointment next week so I can ask her, did you call your mom? But it was just really interesting that all I asked her was, what's your relationship like your mom? And she just started crying. I'm like, okay, lady, I just came to get the hair from under my arms. I really wasn't expecting all of this, but it was just great to be able to know that she may not have been able to have that conversation with her friends, like you say, you and your friend Emerald talk. So
Mm-hmm.
the fact that I'm a stranger coming in there for a service, and she was just like, wow, I guess I better call my mom. She didn't look at it from the standpoint of maybe what her mom was thinking. She only saw from her point of, I want to be myself. I want to be free. I want to do what I want to do. Don't hold me back. But it's like, we're not trying to hold you back. We're just trying to say, slow down, sister, so you don't get in trouble or get influenced by the wrong people, because it can easily happen.
And I bet if those two sat down and had a actual heart to heart conversation, they would have two totally different aspects, and then come to an agreement. Like, I mean, not an agreement, but an understanding. Like, okay, I see why you was this way, but this is
Yeah,
why I was this way, and
exactly.
that's literally how it should be. So
We talk
yeah.
about that a lot because Angie has informed me many times that I was a very mean mother with her growing up. And I was very strict, and I was strict like that, not just because I was raised like that, but I was strict like that because I was trying to keep them from the woes and keep them from the heartbreak and keep them from the negativity. I even told her last week, I said, if there was anything I could change about y'all's childhood, the only thing that I would have changed is I would have never let you go to public school. I would have homeschooled you. I would have kept you away from other people's kids as long as I could have, because everybody raises their household differently. And so, because I had an idea of how I wanted my household to be raised, I just felt like I didn't want them to really be around other kids. But, they survived. They're all adults now. But one thing I can say that doing the podcast, we learn a lot about how we feel about things, but then we also discuss why we feel that way about it. Because I told Angie a few weeks ago, I said, the one thing about me is when I became an adult, I made a conscious decision to not be like any other people in my family. Not that that's a bad thing, but I'm saying I just wanted to carve out a niche for myself. How I raise my kids, how I, feed myself, how I talk to people, my mental health, my process of how I, you know, help myself through any type of mental. Like when Justine interviewed me, I was talking to her about things that you can do when you feel yourself getting into that trap, things that you can put in
Mhm.
place, like meditation, like talking it through, like whatever it takes to make you feel better, not just about yourself, but about whatever it is that you're trying to do in life. So we've been learning a lot about one another, and we realize at this point now we're going to have to get a Patreon account for private members, because we've had some conversations that I don't think YouTube will even allow us to post, but they're so very, very interesting. And Angie and I are getting ready to go on a very exclusive retreat in December that we can't even tell the public about. We're going to have to leave for Patreon because it is absolutely wild. It is absolutely out of this universe, literally. And it is
Gotta be if I'm involved, if I'm doing it.
exactly, and it's something that, here's the funny thing, I brought this up to her, and I said,
Yeah.
this is on my bucket list. I really want to do this. I'm interested in a galactic experience. And she was like, what? And I explained what I
I
wanted
was
to.
like, what you know about that?
And she was like, what do you know? And I was just like, no. See, I think a little bit different than most people. whereas you may be thinking of it for one reason, but I'm looking at it for another reason. And so we're going to do this interesting weekend retreat thing, and then we're going to come back and spill the beans like nobody else's business.
Wait.
But we're going to have to do it on Patreon, because if we do it on YouTube, we're getting kicked off like within 5 minutes. So,
okay.
But we're having a really, really good time with the podcast. We're having fun, not just seeing it grow and not just having people talking about it, but we're having a great time just having conversations about everything. We talked about dad. So everything that we do, we put the ISH on the end of it because there's always some ish going on. So we talked about dads, and Angie and I have something in common. Neither one of us have our dads alive. So her father is not alive. My father's not alive. So we get a chance to talk about those experiences going through that. We've
I never asked you though. How old were you
when my dad died?
Yeah.
Oh, Peyton was 1 year old, so I must have been 28.
And see, I was 27.
Exactly. So I'm saying we have so many things in common. We've talked about the family business. We've talked about, partnerships, and not just with the family business, but maybe your best friend want to start a business. We've talked about that. I've talked about what my specialty is, and starting a 501c3 and why you should do it, and why you should diversify your business by doing that, and talk about, how you can play the tax-free, tax-exempt game, just like all the big guys. People wonder why Amazon and all these folks don't pay taxes, but until you get into the business end of the business, you don't realize they have foundations and they have nonprofits, and they're feeding people in other countries, and they're sending 500 people to, HBCU colleges. You don't know all that because you don't know the back end of the business. So yeah, FedEx doesn't pay taxes. Yeah, so what? Amazon doesn't pay taxes. So what? Delta Airlines doesn't pay taxes. I can name 91 companies that don't pay taxes, but so what? They're doing so many good things in the community that it doesn't matter that they've decided, I don't want to give my money over here. I want to actually take my money into my own hands and give it to the community that I live in, or the communities that I care about. So everything that Angie and I are going to be talking about is women focused. We want to teach women. Like in December, we've got a whole 31 days. We're going to do a podcast every single day for the entire month of December, and it's going to be all the things that women should know. We're going to be talking about everything that we think women should know. It doesn't matter what your age is. There are just some things that women just should know how to do. For an example, women should know how to change a tire. If they don't, do like me and get AAA. So you should know how to do certain things. Angie's probably going to talk about women should know how to pleasure themselves. I don't know what this child is going to talk about.
Because you never know.
We have a list of 200 topics, and we're going to go through and pick the top 31 that we feel like, and it's actually going to end up being 62 topics, because I'm going to talk about a topic for 15 minutes. She's going to talk about a topic for 15 minutes. So we're going to post every single day in the month of December, just to be able to share, because there's so much we want to share, and we've committed to doing over 225 shows a year. So 2022 is going to be on and popping, because we'll have those type of series where we will do a show every single day just to give the information. But we really want to help women. We want to connect with women. I want to teach women how to set a legacy for themselves through entrepreneurship, because that's my life motto, is creating a legacy through entrepreneurship. So anything that I can do to teach women about business, I've written over 25 books. If I can teach you how to write a book in 3 days, let me do it. We wrote my book in 3 days. It's 257 pages. Every book that I've ever written, those books on the back bookshelf, I've got 25 books over there that I wrote. None of them ever took me more than 3 days, because when I get laser focused, you cannot stop me. You will never stop me when I get laser focused, because I will get in it. And she'll tell you, we just started our podcast September 1st. When did I send you that text message? I literally sent you that text message, the end of July or August?
Yeah, we probably, not even 2 weeks to even register everything.
we got everything done, because I told, the night that I texted her and said, we need to start a podcast called Mother Daughter, and I named the word, and I said, nah, we can't say that word in public, because that's gonna turn off a lot of sponsors and people who don't use profanity like me. So I said, no, we gotta come up with ish or something like that. By the time she came to my house that next day, what happened, Angie? What I had ready for you?
Binder for myself, and in her, she had about 567 pages already filled out.
From midnight that night to when she came to my house the next day at 9 a.m. I had already planned the entire plan, from the first show to the 100 to the million women being in our community. I had already planned it. And when she got there, I had her little binder ready, and I went through my entire 500 and something pages of everything, and I said, okay, let's get busy. And we got busy.
Oh, I love that.
That's just how my brain works. I don't take things and just say, oh, well, we'll get to it when we get to it, or, oh, I'll think about it. No, I'm either going to do it or don't talk to me about it. We're not gonna do it. It's just simple, and it's just plain. You're either gonna do it or you're not gonna do it. When I said to Angie, you know what, we need to have a book to go along with this, because we want to be able to honestly take that book and be able to build this community, get on those bigger stage platforms at women's events, expos, and all of that. When you have a book in your hand, you can do so much more magic than you can do without a book, because it puts you in an expert position. So I took the topic, named it in 5 seconds, put it together, had Angie put her little remix on it, and it was done 3 days.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's what we want to do. Is we want to show women how to really take their self-esteem and boost it up so that they can have that confidence to be able to just do whatever it is that they want to do. And it doesn't matter what it is. Do what it is that you want to do that's going to set that legacy for yourself. Because my whole thing is, in 100 years, I want people to still be calling my name. I want somebody grandchild to be saying, yeah, my grandpa used to talk to her and he say she was the bomb, boy. She was something else. And I also want people in business to say, oh my God, you know what? My great auntie's aunt did some work with her, and because of her, we now have a foundation that's now been around for 50 years, because she got her 501c3 nonprofit started with this particular lady, who now 50 years from now, we're running it. I'm talking about legacy. That's what I'm talking about. So that's what we want to build our community to do, is to teach women to just really harness that confidence and bring it out in whatever way you want. And that's what I like about what you said, Justine, about your show, is that people can come there and they can just be themselves. They don't have to pretend. They don't have to fake. They can just open up and have a safe space, because I felt like your space was a safe space to just have a conversation, which is very inviting. So
nice.
anything else anybody leave out about their show that they want to just kind of sprinkle in there right quick before I go through these little podcasting notes that I just kind of want to blow your mind with how awesome our community is?
Well, come next year, we will. When I first started Tea Talks, we had a segment for the Kama Sutra, and me and my girl like do different Kama Sutras. You got to go back and see them. So we're gonna bring that back next January.
Do you know, that's funny that you say that, because when I got married, I was 21 years old. I had dated Angie's dad since I was 14. And again, I grew up in the Bible Belt, so there wasn't no shenanigans going on, okay? So I got married at 21 years old, and I was probably the dumbest person that you'd ever think of when it comes to sex or anything. But what I did when I was about 18 years old is I started reading books, and I read about Kama Sutra, and I read about, what was that one popular book, 101 Sex Positions or something like that. Then there was Dr. Ruth back in the day that would give you the game on BET late at night at 2:00 in the morning. So I just got busy reading and reading and reading, because I was just like, well, if you're going to be married, you got to kind of be uninhibited and do whatever it is that you want to do without feeling embarrassed or feeling ashamed or whatever. So I like that you're going to be educating people on Kama Sutra, because that is a whole mental thing that I think people should really get into. And I saw this lady on the documentary. They have a place out in Mexico. I forgot which part of Mexico it is, where you can come to a retreat there. And what she does is, she's a sex therapist. And what she does is, she calls herself a sex surrogate. She doesn't have sex with the couples, but she trains them on how to please one another. She teaches them how to hold each other, how to talk to each other, how to please each other. And she's the surrogate of that. And I was watching her, how she was working with this one couple, and they had some breakthroughs. He was able to tell her what his blockage was. She did some energy work on them. He was able to tell her what his blockage was, and come to find out, he had been molested when he was a kid, and he had put it so far in the back of his head that he had just kind of blocked it out. But then it came back to the surface as a memory. And he had to end up telling his wife, this is why I don't like to be touched like this. This is why I'm not, affectionate with you, because now I remember when I was a kid, I was molested by, whoever that male that molested him. So it was a very interesting art. And it was a retreat that was all around this sex surrogate and this sex therapy thing. I just thought, that blew my mind. I thought it was interesting. I watched it twice.
That up.
It was either on Amazon or on, not Amazon Prime, but it was either on Hulu or Netflix. But it was one of those shows where they talk about all the different things that are happening. I think on one of them, it was talking about natural health and medicine. And one of them, it was talking about just all kinds of variety of things. If I find the name, I'll send it. As you know, while we took a break, I sent you a little nugget of information on the different events that happen around the world with podcasters. So I went ahead and just kind of slid that into your email, just so you wouldn't have to do too many little clicks, but you could start right there with those 25, 30 events. And
Okay.
A lot of them, they're just now setting up their dates for 2022. So if you go and sign up to the newsletter or whatever, because I'm on everybody's list and their mamas, so they'll send me emails and say, hey, tickets are going live, or hey, we're getting ready to put a date onto this. And that's why I kind of stay in the loop of everything.
Okay.
All right. So in 2021, Nielsen ratings, you know who Nielsen is? They're the ones who keep tabs on how many people are watching what TV show, how many people are doing that. Well, podcasting has gotten so interesting that Nielsen also does its ratings on us. So because we have those analytics and we have all of that background information to tell you how many people are looking at our podcast, and we have all those analytics, especially if we use a hosting company with an RSS feed. Reddit and all of them, they can tell you right then how many people are listening. Because back in the day when I started my first podcast in 2015, it was already kind of getting saturated in the market. And people used to be able, in 2015, you could still lie and say, oh, I got 500 million people listening to my podcast, because nobody could really go and see that. But now with all of the analytics, they can literally see what you can see in your background. But then also they can tell by your likes, they can tell by your views on YouTube or through iTunes. They can tell about your subscribers, and you can put two and two together and really kind of tell. But so I found this very interesting that it says that in the Nielsen's research, it says that as of September 2021, there are over 2 million podcasts and over 48 million episodes alone. That's a lot, because I heard somebody say, I think when Joe Rogan was interviewing Adam Curry, he was saying that last time he looked up that there were over 150,000 podcasts being created every year. So I thought, man, this is really getting interesting. But I still feel like no matter how many podcasts are being introduced into the world, I still feel like everybody has their space of where they belong. Everybody has their niche of what they do. It's kind of like having a daycare center on this parking lot over here and then going 3 blocks away and seeing another daycare. Doesn't matter. There's enough children to serve. There's enough uniqueness where I may be doing education, where over here you may be doing the STEM program. Over here you may have up to 12 years old. I may take kids up to 17 after school. So everybody has their own niche and their own space. So I tell people, don't shy away from doing what it is that you love, because even though there may be other people doing it, there's still a safe place for you to be able to do what you do. All right. So then the other thing is, I'll bring this part up and then these will be the end of the statistics, because I didn't want to go into the other countries because we're in the US. So it says 75% of the US population is familiar with the term podcasting. 75%. So we got to get that other 25% to understand. I can tell you right now, there are a lot of people that, like, for instance, my mother, she understands only what I tell her, but she doesn't understand what podcasting really means. She doesn't. So what I did is I broke it down to her. I said, it's like having your own radio station, but you're not syndicated through a purchased big company. That was the best way I could make her understand.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, that means that I'm not owned by ABC, CBS, NBC. I'm an independent radio show. I just get mine out digitally. So she understood that. That was good enough I could do. It says 50% of all US homes have podcast fans. So 50% is a good percentage. 55%, which is 155 million of the US population, has listened to at least one podcast. 37%, which is 104 million, listen to podcasts at least every month. I don't know about y'all, but I listen daily to somebody's podcast or looks at somebody's podcast show or YouTube podcast or something. But what about y'all? Do y'all look every day and listen to other people, or do you just kind of have a select few?
I got every single day. Today I did. Really just like when I have the time, I listen to it when I'm like cleaning my room or in the car. Like, it just really depends.
Yeah. What about you, Jasmine?
I listen to the Who Dat podcast because they're, I guess, like that one person you was talking about. They're pretty controversial, and they talk about everything. About nurses working with COVID. They'll talk about this one lady who went through sex trafficking. They talk about everything.
Wow. I like a variety of topics. That's really interesting. Okay, it says 24%, which is 68 million, listen to podcasts weekly. 16 million people in the U.S. are avid podcast fans. So we have a fan base, guys. 51% of podcast listeners, listen at this, 51% of podcast listeners are male, but 49% are female. So we getting on up there with listening to these podcasts, because it used to be a real male-dominated type of thing. There were a lot more men that were podcasting than any of us women. Okay, so let's talk about age groups. So 12 to 34, there's 48% that listen. Age 35 to 54, there's only 32% of us that are listening. And then 55 and older, guess what? Only 20% because they don't understand what podcast is. A lot of
Yeah.
them don't know how to work their devices. Like my mom did not know that she had the purple button on her iPhone for podcasting. She didn't even know what that meant. So that 20% is 55 and older who just don't understand what a podcast means. They know how to go and they know how to turn that radio on. They know how to put the dial on in the car. They know how to put the radio on in the kitchen. But to go to your device, click on a purple button, then find your favorite podcast and then listen to it. And then there's so many episodes you don't know which one to start with if it's a new one. You don't have an idea.
Yeah.
I can tell you prior to 2014, I probably listened to maybe a handful of podcasts a year. And then one day I was in Louisiana. I had gotten an office down there and an apartment down there to run some of my business down there. And I was just, putting things away. And I said, you know what, I'm going to put some headphones on and I'm going to see how many more podcasts can I find on this little purple button. And the first podcast that I started listening to that made me an everyday listener, I started listening to this podcast called Allison Rosen is Your New Best Friend. And the reason I liked it is because I could clean up without thinking I had to have a paper and a pen. Because I'm one of those people, if I'm listening, I have to be learning. If I'm looking, I have to be learning. So I decided that day, I don't want to learn nothing. All I want to do is laugh, have fun, and listen to the nonsense of just things that just are just funny and fun. So I found this podcast and I didn't know her. It just happened to be like, you should listen to this podcast. I went, okay, I'll listen. And it was called Allison Rosen is Your New Best Friend. And I'm telling you, they talked about so much fun and funny stuff. As a matter of fact, she was the first one who put in my head, maybe you should start going to some of these podcast events because that's where you can connect with your other podcast, family there. That's where you can get great interviews with people. That's where you can do stuff on the spot. So that was the first podcast that I listened to that I said, I want to listen to these podcasts every single day. And I still listen to Allison Rosen is Your New Best Friend because they are so much fun. I mean, I've been there through her having 3 children. So that's how long I've been listening to her podcast. Yeah. It says 63% of podcast listeners are Caucasian. 41% of the monthly podcast listeners have household incomes that are $75,000. So that's pretty good. And 29% are U.S. population. 25% of the U.S. podcast listeners have at least a 4-year college degree, which is great, versus 19% of the population. And 51% are employed full-time versus 44% of the U.S. population. I think those statistics are absolutely amazing. Now, this statistic does break down Canada, it breaks down Australia, and it breaks it down by where the most listeners are. Then number 4 is Italy. And then it talks about listening habits, and they talk about, do we listen to them on our computer? Do we listen to them on our phones? Do we listen to them in the car with the auxiliary cord? Do we listen to them on YouTube? Because, a lot of people just like us, when we started the podcast, the first thing I said is we're not just going to do the audio part. We've got to have the visuals, because I was listening to somebody yesterday and I said, I know I'm right in line, because this person said, Podcast Movement, I joined their daily message blog. And so they send a message every day. And Jared, the founder, he did an event yesterday talking about why you have to add visuals to your message. And I've known that for years, because as a professional paid speaker, you always got to have some kind of visuals. You got to have a PowerPoint. You got to have something where people can see either a moving video or they want to see still photos of something. So he was saying with the podcast, start thinking about how you can not only have the audio part, but how you can do at least a slideshow, how you could at least do moving videos, how you can at least have visuals with your podcast. Because I don't know if y'all saw this with Instagram, but they put a notice out maybe 60 days ago that said they're going to be investing everything that they're doing in video, in reels, in story time, in any videos. They love the fact that we post pictures there, but where they're investing their dollars in is making sure that we're doing the reels and we're doing the videos, and that if you've got a big following and you're doing mostly reels and videos, they're going to start paying out just like YouTube pays after you get monetized, right? So I'm just excited about that, because if you're thinking about getting monetized, even with, YouTube, of course, they have a lot of strict rules and a lot of what you can say and what you can't say. You can't say, the word that is attached to the pandemic. You can't say certain cuss words. You can't say certain racial words. You can't, say things about LGBTQ. You can't say things about Jewish people. They have a list of things that you are just not allowed to say, or they will take your entire channel down. So we just have to be careful with those things. I've seen it happen through this whole situation. I've seen so many people's channels get taken down because they said, I'm not getting vaccinated because XYZ, whole channel gone. 2 million people gone. And it messes up their monetization, because if you're monetizing, you're getting that money every month. If they take your channel down, that means your check stops. And think about this. During last year, look how many new people have started their shows and that are now being monetized, that said, you know what, I'm not cut out for a 9 to 5. I'm just going to do my YouTube show and bring in my little $8,000 to $10,000 a month on YouTube. When they cut your channel, that cuts your check. It's like being fired from your job. So we got to think about those things, and we got to, I think if we want to really monetize on this thing, we got to polish it up a little bit. We have to do it with integrity and just do it professionally. Like, for instance, Jasmine, with your show, as long as you use all the right terms, you good, girl. Jasmine, with your show, Jasmine, as long as you follow within those guidelines, you can do whatever you want to do with the video. They're not as strict on the audio, but they're strict on the video, because with video, you can show all kind of visuals and things like that. So I think what I'd like to do is to wrap it up and just get last thoughts from everybody. My last thought, I'll go ahead and say it, is that I am wishing every one of us nothing but the best of success, whether we're audio podcasting, video podcasting, we're getting ready for road trips and tours, whether you're going to write your own book, you got your merch that's selling. I just wish us all just the best of the success, and that we continue to build a group of women podcasters. And maybe at some point, if we get about 50 women together, we can even start our own group and start doing more forums like this, maybe once a month or something, and put it up there just so we can talk about who we are and what we do.
I like that.
Yeah.
Anybody want to go next? Podcast.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, what? Oh, I'm sorry. You can go ahead.
Go ahead.
Right.
I mean, everything that Dawn said was going through my head too. I mean, definitely put out there in the universe. We're all going to be successful. We all have unique podcasts, and we all have a unique audience. And at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're doing good for the world. We're making that impact, and, putting those wishes out there for, like, as you said, like tours, merch, and just growing, and literally just growing with our message. And at the end of the day, it is our message.
Exactly. And we got to get that message out into the world. And I love the way we're doing it, because digitally, that means we can reach anybody in any country that we want to.
Anywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
That's right. What about you, Jason?
I thank you so much for coming on Tea Talks and letting me know about this day that I had no idea. So the education behind it today.
Yeah, it's a lot of people that don't know about it. Yeah.
Makes me want to keep going, because it's like, oh,
right. That's
all right.
Right.
So
and and once we all continue to get connected with the communities of other podcasters, and we get connected with what our real message is, and we hone in on that, and we just do what it is that we love to do, we're going to be just fine. It's where I find that when people get confused about their message, they get confused about, well, I'm not being paid for it, and it's a lot of work I'm putting into it. You got to do what you got to do to get to where you can be paid for what it is. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. You got to get that growth going and get your message out. And I think that if we're all helping to keep the message out about each other's podcasts, and we're, promoting one another, because like when this video goes out, we want to make sure all of our names or our podcasts are there, because people that are going to see us, they want to go into that information part and click on it and see what it's about. And Angie, I hope that you tell a lot of your friends that are your age about Jasmine's podcast, because they really need to know it. And then also your friends that have been having conversation about, mental health and all these things, and how to keep yourself aware of that. Definitely tell them about Justine's podcast, because we all have an audience that we can tap into now. With our podcast, we're getting ready to put up our second channel here in 2022, and that's going to be solely focused on all the interviews that we're going to be doing with mothers and daughters. And we're going to be interviewing everyone from celebrities to influencers to just your everyday mother and daughter group. And what we really want to know is, we want them to tell us, what it is that pulls you together, but then also what it is that takes you apart from each other. But then also, how are you working on building your relationship with each other? So our next channel is going to be mother-daughter-ish, and it's going to be we're talking about the interviews, and then we'll have the slideshow with whoever the people are if we don't do them live. I prefer to just do an audio, because people feel comfortable and they don't have to be looking, and they don't have to look great and all that. They just do audio, and then we do a slideshow. But the interviews are going to go up in 2022. So we want to just keep elevating it. And I did get a little tip from someone who went from, in August, he had 700 viewers on his YouTube podcast, and now he has 50,000, and he's doing $27,000 a month on YouTube, getting a check every month. And I went to Social Blade and I checked it, and he's not lying, because I looked at his analytics. I don't know if you noticed or not, but if somebody's on YouTube or on Twitter or anywhere with a show, if you go to Social Blade and you type in the name of their show, it tells you how much money they earn every month from these platforms. So when he said he was earning $27,000 a month, I went and checked it out, and he is not lying. So
What?
and one thing that he taught me is he said, once you get your one show and you've mastered how to do that, kick off a second show. He said your second show it could be bloopers, it could be the best of, it could be, anything that, was shocking. It could be interviews that you done. He said, do a second one, because while you're making money on this one, now you're building this one up to make money. Because most people might not want to go through your whole hour show just to get to the interview part, where you could just pull the interview part out, place it over here on the second platform that's yours also. Then you're now making money from two shows. Wonderful. Just my little tip I want to end with, just a little nugget of something. I don't know where you want to take your podcast, but Angie and I, we're going to take us to the next galaxy. that's what we're going to do. So I want to say thank you, Justine, for being on the podcast today. I'm glad that you agreed to do it. I want to say thank you, Jasmine, for agreeing to do it just from the minute I said I was going to do it 2 or 3 weeks ago. You said, I'm in. I was like, okay, cool. I know that you also thought Elizabeth was going to be on here, so she didn't
come here would be next time.
All right. And all right. Thanks, Angie, for getting everything set up and us trying to get it done.
Thank y'all.
Yeah. I'm excited. And let's just take our podcast to whatever level we feel like we want to take it to without anybody stopping us from doing it, because we've got this platform right at our access. We can do it right from our home. We can do it right from our closet. We can do it right from the living room. Wherever we want to do it from, we can start it there and then take it to whatever level we're trying to take it to. And these tours and doing all of this connecting with people. I remember 5 years ago, people had started taking their podcast on tours, and they would have thousands of folks in the audience that wanted to see them live, because that was their that was, as Seth Godin says, that was their tribe, so they wanted to be there face to face. And so we're going to do our first event October the 23rd, and then we're going to continue to set up our events for 2022. We're going to do ours we're going to do a summer event because I like heat. So we're going to do July, August, and September, and then end it right at the end of the summer going into the fall, so that we've got all of our locations planned. We know where we're going. We just got to put the actual dates onto them. And we already know that all of our events are going to be, with Marriott, because that's my favorite. That's why we always do events at Marriott Hotel, because I am a bun boy queen.
It's going to cut off in a couple of seconds.
All right. Okay. Well, we're going to wrap it up. So thank you. And let's celebrate International Podcast Day. Everybody do a little dance that we got it done. Woo! All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.